Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to share with you guys the build that I've put together in Last Epoch. This is my first time playing the build. I do want to open up with saying I have no idea what I'm doing. I very purposely went into this trying to blindly put something together. I looked up very close to nothing the entire time playing. I have roughly about 30 hours actually played in the game right now, and I just wanted to take an idea and put it together the best that I could based on what I found, without looking up uniques or set items or other builds. I have no idea if this is a build that people are already playing. I don't know if this is known to be a bad build. I know nothing about that. So I just wanted to share with you guys what I've kind of come up with, out of the ether from my experiences playing the game. So what this character is an on-hit / crit based necrotic damage type Lich. So the Acolyte base class has two different masteries, aka ascendancies, the Necromancer and Lich. Since I didn't want to play minions, I went for the Lich, which seems to be based around one of three damage types: necrotic, poison, and physical. So poison is poison. Physical damage has bleeds, but also can do on hit. And then necrotic damage seems to have like a weird hybrid damage over time characteristic. And that's also kind of why it appealed to me, because it reminds me a lot of chaos damage over time in Path of Exile. It seems like most elements in the game have their own associated ailment, and the ailment that goes with necrotic damage seems to be the damned ailment. So if we look at damned right here, it deals necrotic damage over time, also reduces health regen, and it can stack an unlimited number of times. Now, much like doing chaos damage over time or anything that's like kind of split in Path of Exile or any other ARPG or RPG system in general, when you want to scale into the end game, you usually don't want to be splitting your on hit and your damage over time. The original iteration of this build, I was actually using Hungering Souls and doing kind of a hybrid of doing some damage over time, applying as much damage as I could. I got to about the level 70 monoliths and it felt okay, but I definitely felt the damage kind of falling off quite a bit. And that's when I was looking into, bigger damage scalers. And basically what I did is I moused over all of my skills and I looked at what just had the most on-hit damage. And so I was mousing over these skills. I had Hungering Souls, had like 5k damage, Drain Life, okay, 6k damage. But then I moused over Soul Feast, which has 24,000 damage per second. Soul Feast hits very, very hard, and it doesn't have any damage over time component. So when I saw the size of the damage over time on Soul Feast, I decided to put the build together based around that. Soul Feast is a really interesting skill. By default, it's just a single point click on a single target that can hit additional targets, but it requires the target to be cursed. If you spec into Grand Imprint right here, it no longer requires the target to be cursed, and it doesn't have a target limit, but it now hits all enemies in a small cone in front of you. I think this is just overall an upgrade in every regard. I did experiment with auto cursing in a couple ways. There's a way that you can automatically curse by using Transplant right here. When you dash forward, you'll cast Bone Curse in an AoE, and then you'll apply it. I also tried other ways of manually casting Bone Curse with changing the damage to necrotic and doing all that sorts of stuff. Yeah, I just found that direction not particularly powerful. So basic idea is Soul Feast is our, our regular walking around casting type of skill, but we only use this when we have to. This build is much more of a conditional timer-based auto bomber than anything else. The main thing that we're doing is we're actually using Death Seal right here. I would not be surprised if this is a very meta skill. I think it's basically mandatory for scaling damage on a Lich. And the reason for that is you get increased damage per missing health when you use Death Seal. So what Death Seal does is it will remove all ward and seal your health, preventing it from going above. Kind of like Petrified Blood from Path of Exile, and you'll deal more damage equal to your percent of missing health. And you'll also take less damage equal to half of your percent of missing health. So it's very, very similar to Petrified Blood with Pain Attunement anointed as well. At the end of it, it'll do an AoE explosion based on the amount of missing health that you had. And then there's a lot of talents that we can take for Death Seal that kind of make it automatic in a lot of ways. So the big one down here, Deadlock, is if your health is above 33%, it automatically goes down to 33%. So you get that 66% bonus right when you cast it. So when I press Death Seal, my life automatically goes down. I get a very big less damage taken. I should get quite a bit of armor from Desperate Shroud right here. And then with Corrupted Consciousness, I also get increased damage per 3% missing health. With 66% missing health, that's 22 times 5. But wait, there's more. There's also Dance with Death right here. You deal increased damage. This bonus is tripled when you're below 35% health. When we press Death Seal, we're at 33% health. So this 40% goes to 120%. 216% increased damage when we just press that button. Something like that. My math might be off right now. I'm just off the cuff. This feels kind of like a pretty mandatory synergy for Lich for scaling your damage. I didn't see anything else in any of the passage trees or anything that had numbers this large. Would basically expect that if you're playing Lich, you would be doing something like this, at least if you're doing on-hit Lich. I wouldn't be surprised if you're doing poison or bleed. It's totally different. But if you're trying to do on-hit Lich, this seems pretty mandatory. Other thing is I'm using Reaper form. Feels pretty mandatory when you're playing Lich as well. You turn into a Reaper. Your life regen gets turned off, but with the appropriate talents, you can get a lot of life leech and a lot of recovery and life on hit that will allow you to sustain your Lich for very long. The cool thing is when you die as your Reaper form, you immediately full heal and turn back into a human, just resetting the cooldown on your Reaper form, which means that when we go into Death Seal, if we take a really big hit when we're in Reaper form, it'll turn us back into a human, and we don't have to worry about like any big one-shots or damage over time instantly killing us because we're on low life. We basically get like an additional health bar. On top of that, I took all of the talents that make me get more damage and make me tankier. Anywhere that it said get more armor, take less damage, I took all of that. And then anything that also said do more damage, get more crit chance, I took those as well. I have one point here in Death Comes Quickly, just gives me a little bit more movement speed. The other interesting thing here is we're using Reaper's Ascendance, which every 5 seconds, it'll give us increased spell damage. It's a stacking buff that happens when you're a Reaper form. So this can give you up to 100% increased spell damage, and then we take a couple points of Reaper Supremacy to make that apply a little bit quicker. Nothing really to talk about here with the Soul Feast talent points. We would just want to go into mana efficiency, more damage, and then, like I said, Grand Imprint right here. Soul Feast no longer requires targets to be cursed, so we can just cast it whenever. And then I have Winds of Affliction here. We apply Frailty, which makes the monsters deal less damage, makes us a lot tankier. And then the last skill that we're using here is Wandering Spirits. I tried using the Bone Curse, which had Armor Shred. I tried all sorts of different utility stuff. I tried not using Transplant and just trying to use the Reaper form's Reap. So we do have this like mobility Reap skill that grants us some health when we hit enemies, and trying to go into that and just use that as my mobility. But I found Transplant pretty mandatory because it gives us this bone armor right here for 300 increased armor, 12% less damage taken, and it's actually 20% more effective than that for 360 armor and 14% less damage taken. And then bone armor lasts 7 seconds, and it has a 10-second cooldown, so 70% of the time, we're way, way tankier. With Death Seal as well, we get a lot, we're a lot tankier. In addition to that, with Transplant here, I'm using Pools of Blood. It'll leave a pool of blood, slows down the enemies, and also heals me when I walk over it. Really helps kind of sustain that life when it's kind of ticking down. Acolyte's Fervor for a little haste and frenzy, just go a little bit faster. Actually, it looks like the Scarlet Rain here is a little bit of a dangler. I could unspec these, take some more Acolyte's Fever and some Siphon. I'll probably move those over there. I was previously going down to Doombringer here, auto-casting Bone Curse. I think I'm going to remove that and go up to there. It's been really nice kind of like home growing and building and experimenting a lot here because it's so easy to unspec some points. It only takes like 2 echoes to go back to level 20. Unspecs a couple points, do a couple echoes, put them back in, and try out a build. And then last up, our final utility skill. Like I said, I tried absolutely everything that I could, looking into not using Transplant, using Bone Curse here. I even tried to experiment with Rip Blood a little bit. It has a transform fizz into necrotic component. Felt very, very weak, actually. It felt awful, wasn't doing any damage. Looked into everything that I could, but I really found Wandering Spirits giving me the most quality of life. The big reason for that, I think, is Drained Will right here. It has 150 necrotic resistance shred chance per second. This stacks up to 10 times, and if we look at the enemies, this stacks very, very quickly. It's basically up all the time. What it does is it reduces necrotic resistance by 5% or 2% against bosses and players, and it lasts 4 seconds and stacks 10 times. It stacks very reliably. It's up basically all the time when the Wandering Spirits are out, and so regular monsters have minus 50 necrotic res, and bosses have minus 20. And I found this way more impactful than trying to find other sources of armor shred or anything like that for doing more damage. But I'm also using Infusing Souls right here. One of the biggest pain points with this build so far has actually been once in a while, I seem to run out of mana. I'm not sure exactly what the cause is. I don't know if there's monsters that reduce your mana regen or something like that. Like, as you can see, I can naturally sustain my mana like pretty well as long as I'm not always holding it down. Sometimes when I'm fighting, my mana just runs out. And maybe there's a monster that does that. I'm not sure. But I've found that by using Infusing Souls right here, 15% of the time when one of the spirits expires, I'll gain 12 mana. And I found that really, really handy for maintaining my mana in long fights. Like I said, this is not a build guide or anything, but the build's done everything that I've needed it to do. As you can see, I got capped res. If I have all my buffs up, you can see I have about 2,000 armor. Currently, I have a 40% spell crit chance. I would like that to be higher. That's the basic idea, is you go in a Reaper form, you transplant around, and you cast your Death Seal, you cast your Wandering Spirits periodically, and then if a monster doesn't die or your Death Seal is on cooldown, then you can kind of just use your Soul Feast as you need to. This build is deceptively tanky because, like I said, we have a lot of less damage taken, a ton of armor, or at least, you know, my understanding of a ton of armor. Remember, I'm an absolute noob. I have no idea what I'm saying. I've been able to do everything I need to do in this game. Oh, we're moonwalking again. Nice. So if we look, I've been able to do Empowered Monoliths. I have some of them at like, I don't know, 120 something corruption. You know, I've been able to kill the endgame bosses there. You know, I've done level 90 or whatever it is, tier 3 dungeons. I've only died a handful of times, like when I didn't have my res capped, or from like deceptive things like, you know, some like random bugs and stuff like that. My gear is, I assume, not very good, but I can just show what it is really quickly. This helmet, like I said, is just really nice for the stun avoidance. Gives me some necrotic penetration. The one thing I'll say is it really feels like necrotic on hit damage is not very well supported, and necrotic on hit versus damage over time, it's like really weird. As far as I can tell, I can make the damage over time do more damage, but I can't scale it when I'm scaling the on hit. It feels really weird. I actually have the full set here, and I was using it before, but I ended up dropping it because it, you know, it was only making me do more overtime damage, which I'm not scaling. Feel really weird about the overtime versus the on hit, at least for necrotic damage. You know, maybe I'm just doing it wrong. Yeah, this helmet's pretty good. We just get straight pen. Yeah, I don't really care about the chill. My amulet's like nothing, you know, just some damage, some crit. Same thing with my offhand. I would love to replace my amulet, my offhand, but I haven't found anything for them yet. Same thing, just generic spell damage, necrotic damage here. Necrotic damage here. I got these Fizz Res boots, which are really, really nice find. Cooldown recovery speed right here. This is a thing I would love, love, love to get a lot more of. That's basically what would make this build way more fun to play. Is like there is a pretty noticeable cooldown on the Death Seal. Yeah, 4-second cooldown with the CDR that I have. That downtime is kind of an uncomfortable time when you're going around, and you would like that to be up a lot more. Same thing, you know, Reaper, I have it down to 16 seconds, but if I could get that Reaper form down to like 12 seconds or something, you know, it's very uncomfortable to be out of Reaper form and out of Death Seal. I found this tier 6 spell damage wand that also I was able to get necrotic damage on it. Very nice here. +1 Wandering Spirits, +1 Reaper form, body armor. These gloves are pretty nice. Mortality's Grasp gives us Mark 4 death on hit, which I believe is -20 or 25 all res. So really nice damage right there. Also, ward gained when damage leaves you at low health can be really nice to, you know, makes this a little bit tankier. Then I'll show off my one, you know, decent item is I have a Jilra's Star Dial right here that dropped with 1 legendary potential, which allowed me to take a tier 6 critical strike avoidance ring that I found, and I put that onto this ring. And the cool thing about this is if I've used a movement or time travel skill, then for 4 seconds, all those stats will get tripled. So I'll have 150% crit strike avoidance for 4 seconds with the 12-second cooldown, as well as a lot more spell damage and all that. So not a ton of uptime, but, you know, 30% of the time I have full critical strike avoidance. Not bad. The idols are like really nothing. You know, increased spell damage on low life, spell damage on low health, necrotic damage, and then just like res and life and stuff like that. There's like nothing here. All right, and let's show one of these little mini boss fights right here. So we go into Reaper form. We're going to transplant into the fight to get our bone armor. We're going to cast Wandering Spirits when we can, keep our Death Seal up when we can, and then just try to not stand in any explosions. Yeah, damage over time is the most uncomfortable thing. I did notice that there is a less damage over time taken mod that you can get on your idols for Lich specifically, or at least for Acolyte. And yes, since we're always in low life, right, that would be, you know, really, really big for us. Damage over time is the most uncomfortable thing right now. But I haven't gotten many idols that have that with like anything else good on it. So I have no idea if this is like good damage or bad damage or, or what, you know, compared to anything else. I have no frame of reference. I believe I have a Culling Strike on one of my skills. I don't remember at this point. All right, there we go. Seems like it always drops the Siphon of Anguish as well. I think that's just a static drop. And then I'll show you guys a quick little regular echo just to, you know, see the normal gameplay right here. So yeah, I mean, same idea, right? Nothing, nothing crazy. Let's see, destroy the Soul Spires. The nice thing is, like, we can kind of like incidentally kill monsters as we're walking around, so we don't have to like stop and cast or too much. And then, yeah, like I said, it's besides damage over time, it is really deceptively tanky. You know, this far, I don't I don't know if I'm actually doing like end game encounters. To be perfectly honest, I think I'm in the end game. I don't know. I have all my blessings. I'm doing empowered monoliths. I've reset the corruption web a couple times. I think this is the end game. This is kind of like the weird thing about you know, playing a game totally blind and then, you know, trying to make a video about what I've done. But yeah, hopefully I'm doing a good job. Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I've really been enjoying this game. I think it's been a really good contrast and palate cleanser, honestly, after playing PoE, you know, nonstop as my only ARPG for the past couple years. And yeah, they did a great job with this game. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Like I said in the video yesterday, there is insane potential here. The next time that I play this, we got Diablo 4 this coming weekend, and then the whole league start season for Path of Exile starts basically the next week. That's basically going to be taking up all my time. I am genuinely very excited to see what the next content drop is for this game. And I'm going to start consuming some Last Epoch content. So the next time that we come back to this, you know, I'll know a little bit more about what I'm talking about. I'll try to get like a frame of reference of like what's good, what's bad, start understanding some synergies and, you know, uniques and sets to farm for and all that. Like I said, this is just what I found over my 20 to 30 hours of playing. I'm level 91. I did the legendary potential. I did empowered monoliths. I'd reset them a couple times, push the corruption up a little bit. This is going to be the end of my journey for this season. I don't know how seasons work in Last Epoch, but whatever the season is, you know, I'm going to be going to Diablo 4 into PoE after this. But I've had a ton of fun. I really love this game, and I can't wait to see what they have in store. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm going to go get ready for the stream, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye.